The Secret Power of a Stranger, the Science of Anonymous Kindness. Hey there, curious minds. Welcome aboard. Today we're doing something special, a deep dive like spelunking through a mine of knowledge across 5 distinct levels to unearth a treasure hidden in plain sight. We're going to talk about something you might think you already know, anonymous kindness. That simple gesture of paying for the coffee of the person behind you or leaving a book on a park bench. But I promise you what we're about to uncover goes much, much deeper. And you might ask, why dedicate an entire journey to something so simple? Because it's not simple at all. It's one of the most powerful and mysterious forces that move us as human beings, a secret engine that once you truly grasp it, changes everything. My promise to you is this: by the end of our descent, you'll no longer just see a simple act of kindness. You'll see the hidden mechanism that drives humanity, and it might even change the way you decide to act tomorrow morning. Level 1, the surface of the known. Up here on the surface, we all recognize the core idea. Anonymous kindness is doing something good for someone without that person knowing it was you. It's simple, right? It feels good, both for the giver and of course for the receiver. It's a little spark of surprise and warmth in an otherwise ordinary day. That's the foundation we all agree on. Another aspect we've all seen is how it has blossomed in the digital world. Think of anonymous donations to a cause or an incredibly positive and supportive comment left by an unknown user. And this affects our daily behavior. Witnessing these acts, even if they don't directly impact us, gives us a sense of hope. It makes us think that despite everything, people are good at heart. A universal example is leaving an umbrella at a bus stop on a rainy day with a note that simply says, "Take it if you need it." No credit sought, no thanks expected, just a problem solved for a complete stranger. And a third basic fact we all know is that these acts are usually spontaneous. It's not something planned out for weeks, it's an impulse that arises in the moment. This impulse, believe it or not, has a profound evolutionary origin. For thousands of years, the survival of our ancestors didn't just depend on their small tribe, but on cooperation between different groups who might never meet again. Imagine a hunter from a clan leaving a portion of his kill at a crossroads, knowing that another group might find and need it. He isn't looking for thanks, he's looking to strengthen the invisible network of reciprocity that made the human species, as a whole, stronger. Everything we've just described is just the tip of the iceberg. It's the warm, visible part floating on the surface that we can all see and understand. But if this is what we see on the surface, what secret engines drive it from below? This is where our true descent begins. Level 2, the hidden mechanisms. The first major revelation has to do with your own biology. When you perform an act of anonymous kindness, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals, primarily endorphins. And this is the key. Neuroscientists call this phenomenon the helper's high. It's not just a nice feeling, it's a real neurochemical state, very similar to the euphoria a runner feels. Your brain is literally rewarding you for being generous without expecting anything in return. Now, the positive application of this knowledge is fascinating. You can use this to identify opportunities. Knowing this mechanism exists, you can intentionally trigger this positive state in your brain by actively seeking out small opportunities to help anonymously throughout your day. A concrete example: instead of donating to a large, well-known charity where your name appears on a list, try donating completely anonymously to a small local project. The goal isn't external gratitude, but to activate that pure internal reward circuit. But of course, there's also a risk. Knowing this mechanism makes us feel so good it can be exploited. You have to learn to detect when an organization might be selling you the feeling of helping without guaranteeing a real impact, using emotive stories while being very opaque with their actual results. An example of this risk would be a social media campaign asking you to donate to an anonymous and vague cause, showing you videos of happy people, but without offering any transparency about exactly where every single penny goes. They're selling you the helper's high, not necessarily the actual outcome. Now let's move on to a process governed by an invisible rule. It's not about the person you help directly repaying you. The rule is much bigger and more subtle. It's known as generalized altruism. Altruism is basically helping another even if it comes at a cost to you. What this rule suggests is that with each act of anonymous kindness, you're not paying a single person back, you're paying into the system. You're investing in creating a society where help is more probable, which in the long run benefits you and those you care about. Think about this. When someone in an apartment building picks up trash another resident left behind without knowing who it was, they don't expect that neighbor to return the favor. What they are doing is contributing to a generally cleaner and more respectful environment for everyone who lives there. There's an internal structure at play here that is fundamental, the battle between our ego and our deeper self. The ego is the part of us that craves recognition, applause, and validation. And this connects directly to a cognitive bias, an error in our thinking system known as the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is that belief we all have that people pay far more attention to us than they actually do. Anonymous kindness is a short circuit for this bias. By eliminating your audience by ensuring no one knows it was you, you completely nullify the ego's need for approval. So here's a mental strategy to actively counteract it. Next time you do something good, make anonymity part of the challenge. The game isn't just to do good, but to actively resist the temptation to tell anyone about it. When you feel that impulse to say, "Hey, I did that," acknowledge it and let it pass. In that precise instant, you're separating the act from your ego, and that's where its true inner power is unlocked. Let's think about how an ancient custom shaped this. In many ancient cultures, there was a tradition of leaving anonymous offerings to the gods or spirits of the place to pray for the well-being of the entire community, not just a single individual. The practical takeaway for today is that our community is now global and digital. An anonymous act of support online, a useful resource shared without attribution, can have ripple effects that we'll never see, just as those ancient offerings sought a greater, invisible good. And if we put together everything we've seen at this level, we can extract the key real-life deduction, the most important principle of action that emerges from all of this. Presented as a general rule, the power of an act of kindness appears to be inversely proportional to the credit you seek for it. This means that the less recognition you ask for, the more potent its effect, both on the social system and on your own mind. So, in real life, what do we do? Next time you feel generous, don't think of anonymity as an option, but as a power-up ingredient for the act itself. It's a mental exercise, not just an act of charity. Think about it for a second. We've gone from a simple, "it feels good," to understanding neurochemical rewards, invisible rules of social cooperation, and the taming of our own ego. The power of this understanding is immense. But if you thought we had it all figured out, prepare yourself, because now the story takes a turn for the truly chaotic. Level 3, the chaos of reality. Welcome to the debates and complexities. And the first major controversy is a question that has plagued philosophers for centuries. Does pure, selfless altruism truly exist? On one hand, there are those who advocate for psychological egoism. They argue, no, it's impossible. We always get something in return, whether it's the helper's high or the simple satisfaction of seeing ourselves as good people. Therefore, they claim deep down it's always a selfish act. On the other hand, there's the view that argues intention is what truly counts. If your primary goal was genuinely to help another, the fact that you incidentally feel good doesn't invalidate the altruistic nature of the act. What's at stake here is nothing less than our conception of human goodness. Are we selfish machines, or are we programmed for genuine connection? Now let's challenge a popular belief, the idea that the biggest and most visible gestures of kindness are the ones that have the greatest impact on the world. This leads us to debunk a widespread myth, the myth of the lone hero. We love stories of one person changing the world, but the reality is that the most profound social changes almost never come from a single heroic act, but from the sum of millions of small, anonymous, and unacknowledged acts. The psychological reason we love to believe in that myth is because our brains are designed to understand simple narratives with clear protagonists. A hero is easy to admire. A complex network of millions of anonymous acts of kindness, however, is abstract, diffuse, and much harder to package into a compelling story. And this leads us to a paradox, an inherent contradiction in the subject itself. To make anonymous kindness a cultural norm, for more people to practice it, we have to talk about it, tell stories about it, celebrate it, which by definition removes its anonymity. It's a philosophical dilemma without an easy solution. How do you effectively promote a virtue that, to exist in its purest form, must remain a secret? Let's now adopt a slightly more critical point of view. We're going to question something most people accept without a second thought. Here's an ethical objection. Could large-scale anonymous kindness, like crowdfunding to pay medical bills, actually be masking and enabling unjust systems to continue? It's a beautiful gesture, but it also takes pressure off a broken healthcare system. It treats the symptom, but not the systemic disease. And let's talk about another controversy, the power of anonymity online. It's a double-edged sword like few others. If we analyze it over time, the initial promise of the internet was that anonymity would allow for a prejudice-free exchange of ideas. But we've seen that that very anonymity is the perfect shield for harassment, hate, and misinformation. The debate is no longer whether anonymity is inherently good or bad, but how we manage this extreme duality. All this, in the end, connects to the human condition. We are beings capable of the most incredible generosity and the deepest cruelty. And the fundamental problem that anonymity reveals to us as a species is that it doesn't change us, it amplifies us. By eliminating immediate social consequences, what it truly does is reveal the character that was already there. It shows what we are truly made of. So as you can see, the topic is chaotic. It's a debate about our own nature. It's a tool that can mask larger problems, and it's a power that can be used to build or to destroy. Nothing is as simple as it first appeared. You've survived the chaos. Now it's time to uncover the details that separate the curious from the true connoisseurs. Level 4, expert knowledge. Here we delve into niche secrets. And the first concept I'm going to reveal to you is a word you've probably never heard: stigmergy. Stigmergy is a mechanism of indirect coordination, where a trace left in the environment by a previous action stimulates the performance of a subsequent action. There's no direct communication. The communication is the modified environment itself. The best analogy to understand it is an ant colony building a nest. Ants don't have blueprints or give each other direct orders. One ant deposits a pellet of mud with pheromones, and that trace stimulates the next one to deposit theirs nearby. The nest emerges from thousands of uncoordinated actions, all guided by the previous work. An act of anonymous kindness is a trace of social pheromone. It leaves a mark in the world that inspires the next without the need for a master plan. And we have to talk about a key, but often overlooked figure, the French biologist Pierre-Paul Grasset. It was he who coined the term stigmergy in the 1950s while studying termite behavior. He wasn't thinking about human society, but his work with insects unknowingly gave us the perfect conceptual tool to understand how millions of individual anonymous acts of kindness can build a functional and resilient society, just as millions of termites build mud cathedrals. Now let's talk about a theory that is often misinterpreted, Richard Dawkins's the selfish gene. Many people believe it means we are programmed to be inherently selfish. But a deeper, more rebellious reading suggests that kindness, even anonymous kindness, can actually be a winning strategy for our genes. From the perspective of a gene whose sole objective is to replicate, creating an individual who contributes to a stable, safe, and cooperative society is the best long-term strategy. So your impulse to help a stranger isn't just you being good, it's your genetic programming executing an incredibly sophisticated survival strategy. And here's a counterintuitive detail from scientific research. Studies conducted at institutions like the National Institutes of Health in the United States have used brain scans and discovered that the areas of the brain that activate when we receive a reward, like money, are the same ones that activate when we give to a cause anonymously. This clashes with our intuition because we tend to think of life as a zero-sum game. Giving is losing something, receiving is gaining something. But neuroscience tells us that for your brain's reward circuit, the purely voluntary and anonymous act of giving is a gain. It's neurologically profitable. And this is where we connect several ideas. That concept we mentioned, stigmergy, the trace we leave in the environment, becomes even more powerful. Because that trace not only inspires, but it has been shown that the simple act of witnessing an act of kindness can generate a mood elevation and the release of oxytocin, the so-called love hormone, in the observer. And this is the aha moment. Anonymous kindness doesn't just create a simple chain of actions, it creates a biochemical cascade. The giver receives a brain reward, the receiver gets the help, and a third person who simply observes it gets a neurochemical boost that makes them more likely to be kind themselves. It's a self-feeding kindness machine. Reaching this level of detail gives us a much more authentic view. It's not some magical ethereal feeling. It's an elegant, complex, and absolutely real biological and social system. From here, we enter unknown territory. Do you dare to look towards the final frontier? Level 5, the final frontier. Welcome to Speculation and Wonder. The first futuristic idea is this: what if we designed our future social technologies, our social networks, deliberately based on the principle of anonymous stigmergy? Imagine what this could be like in 100 years. A social network where your influence isn't measured in likes or followers, but through an anonymous reputation system that rewards positive contributions to collective well-being, modifying the digital environment to make it more cooperative and less polarized, without the ego being the central focus. And this is where science hits its limits. Science can explain how anonymous kindness works, brain chemistry, social dynamics, but it cannot answer the why. Why do we feel such a deep sense of meaning and purpose when performing an act that no one will ever know we did? When science stops, philosophy takes over. And philosophy asks us, what does this impulse tell us about the fundamental nature of our consciousness? And here comes a dizzying philosophical implication. Perhaps this impulse for anonymous kindness suggests that the separation we feel between ourself and others is, in part, an illusion, and that in those moments of pure generosity, we are experiencing a more fundamental connection, acting not as isolated individuals, but as parts of a single conscious organism. This connects directly with the future of humanity. Let's think about the major global problems we face. Challenges like climate change, biodiversity loss, or extreme poverty are too big to be solved by individual heroes or by nations competing with each other. They require massive, decentralized cooperation that is often anonymous and seeks no gratitude. Understanding and mastering the engine of anonymous kindness could well be the key to our survival. And here's the final idea, the most provocative statement of this journey. An act of anonymous kindness isn't an exception to the rule of survival of the fittest. It's the most sophisticated and advanced expression of it. This resonates philosophically because it redefines what it means to be fit. Perhaps true long-term evolutionary fitness doesn't reside in the strength of the individual, but in their capacity to strengthen the system of which they are a part. And with that idea, our descent through the 5 levels has ended. We've reached the bottom. Now, let's take a moment. Let's look back up and contemplate the full panorama of the journey we've made together. Remember at the beginning of the video when we talked about that simple, familiar idea of paying for a stranger's coffee? That small, warm feeling. Hold that image in your mind for a second. And now, put it in direct contrast with the final idea we've just explored, that of a global, biochemically reinforced cooperation network operating according to the principles of stigmergy, which could be the key to our future as a species, all while suggesting that our consciousness is fundamentally interconnected. We've traveled from a pleasant gesture to a brain mechanism, a social contract, a philosophical dilemma, a theory of complex systems, and finally, to a profound question about purpose and humanity. The transformation of a simple idea into something immense. What idea from this entire journey has impacted you the most? What was the moment that truly made you pause and think? I want to sincerely thank you for your time, your attention, and your curiosity. It has been a privilege to take this journey with you. Please share your reflections in the comments below. The conversation we have there is the next and most important stage of this exploration. If you're fascinated by these deep dives into knowledge, I invite you to subscribe so you don't miss our next journeys and to share this video with someone you think it might just blow their mind. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and never underestimate the power of a simple hidden gesture. What anonymous mark will you leave on the world today?